So yeah, what's happening? I just thought today we'd make a video on Canserbero, who I'd say a large margin in Latin America considered to be the best poet of our times, and I tend to agree. We'll just run through how he became greatest rapper on this cursed rock. So yeah, before talking about Can himself, I think it's important to understand the history that led Venezuela to its current state. It was actually the richest country in South America for the time, and this was largely due to its abundant oil reserves, which fueled significant economic growth. By 1970, Venezuela's per capita GDP was actually higher than a lot of European nations like Spain, Greece, even Israel. It was only slightly lower than the United Kingdom. This influx of wealth led to tons of economic development, helped in large part by the ongoing global oil crisis at the time. Problems came from the economy's near exclusive reliance on the oil. Wages in Venezuela reached the highest in 1984 at 43,000 bolivars, which was nearly 3 times higher than it had been in 1950. Nevertheless, fluctuations in exchange rates, US sanctions, and general mismanagement from the government sealed the fate of the country. Millions would leave due to shortages in necessities and what can only be described as a full-on humanitarian crisis. Political unrest just added to the issue, and the socialist policies that were generally popular with the public led to fear from private investors. Nationalisation of industries, price controls, and excessive government spending made for a large amount of protests and the general dissatisfaction with the government. So yeah, going into the 2000s, drugs mainly. Venezuela was notable for being a transit point where drugs would be moved through, but it wouldn't be till the 2000s that shit really started to hit the fan. Thought to be as a result of the DEA's departure in 2002, seen as a turning point of sorts, from going from the middleman to the producer. A big group of government officials and high-ranking military personnel would be caught being heavily involved in the drug operations, which remains true to this day, a common occurrence. And yeah, I just have to say, this is eerily similar to how the US government flooded the ghettos with crack in the 80s. Like, do people really think it's your local neighbourhood dealer who's bringing in all the bricks? It's more likely someone who owns a boat or a plane, most likely someone with government or law enforcement connections. I do like to remind people this is what the war on drugs does. While it might be alright over here, and we might not have to deal with a war zone that we've created, but it just irks me that the lack of acknowledgement of the conditions we create for people like a world away. It really seems like something needs to be right under most people's nose before they start seeing it as a problem or affect them personally. Safe to say, Canserbero was spawned in a rigged game from the start. Talking about Cas himself, if we go on to his family, so we have family. Canserbero had a bit of a rough start with his mother passing of a heart attack when he was only 9, leaving him with his father and stepmother. Growing up listening to a lot of reggaeton, his father also put him onto bands like Sabbath, Zeppelin, The Stones, The Ramones, Queen, but most notably the Beatles. He seemed to have quite a deep connection with the Beatles, seeming to relate to the message, "All you need is love," which he actually got tattooed in big bold letters on his arm, and it very much became part of his image. Canserbero's older brother was murdered in the year 2000, and he was only 12 years old when his brother passed, pushing him more towards dark, thematic qualities and finding more brevity in music like underground hip-hop and hard rock. He's an avid reader and loved documentaries, and this shaped his very omni worldview, not necessarily subscribing to one ideology or religion, but taking parts that he admires from all of them. At a conference in 2012, he said, "It's inevitable that you'll talk politics. I'm not a politician. Speeches bore me and make me sleepy. But what is more important than talking about the destiny of millions of people when electing someone who's going to make decisions for us? I think there's no more important conversation than that. When you do sincere rap, you inevitably start talking about politics. It gets away from you." I think that quote sums up his politics, really. Canserbero comes from the Spanish word for Cerberus, the three-headed dog that guarded the underworlds in Greek mythology. At age 11, Can started making music with limited supplies that he could scratch together. The first real connection would come in 2003 when, studying computer science, he'd come across a young Lil Super. Super invited Can to join the Supremacy music group, known for creating conscious rap. The two would eventually make a mixtape together called Can Plus Zoo, putting it out for free on the internet and now being seen as a very monumental classic album in Latin America. Can's own mixtape, Our Doctorate Is Not Dogma, It's a Guide to Action, was released in 2008, compiling most of his best recorded songs to date, easily being one of the best rap mixtapes you'll ever hear. Can's instantly recognisable deep shaggy delivery and the production all over it's amazing. One of the tracks uses like a harmonica as an instrumental, it's very organic feeling. All this while working as a claims analyst in a company in Maracay. He studied law and science at the Bretagne University of Aragna. I think that's how you say that. But decided to leave the program to focus more on music. In 2010, he released his debut solo album, Vida, recorded and edited in Caracas with his producer Capu. This album, like the others, was recorded in a recording studio known as El Tejo. Due to its great reception by the public, he received an award for Best Hip Hop Artist at the Drixton Music Awards in 2012. He released his second album, Murtai, the second in what is now a double album, Verde and Murtai. The album consists of 14 songs written by him and considered not only to be one of his best, but one of the best Spanish rap albums of all time. The following year, he had released the collab tape Apper and Can, Rapper a Page. The album includes videos for the songs Ready and Stop that strongly criticised the Venezuelan police officers, adding to the resentment from those in power towards Canserbero. Continuing his tours, he goes as far as Spain. In 2013, he participated as a vocalist on the song Ella by Malo Rodriguez for the album Berger. Canserbero had several projects planned for 2015 and anticipated even more concerts. He seemed to be overjoyed to announce this in his last interview in December of 2014 on CMTV. So yeah, that would be Canserbero's last real big public appearance until January 20th of 2015, when his body had been discovered lifeless and clearly beaten and battered on the floor, having come out of a 10-storey window of an apartment complex. At first, the media ruled it a murder-suicide, though the public remained adamant he was more than meets the eye. His manager's brother, Gilmoro Armericastia, would be interviewed on the scene claiming it was a mental health break. The media deemed it a suicide, putting all of the blame on Canserbero, saying that he'd stabbed his friends before jumping out the window himself. Much of what happened would remain speculation till about a year ago, when Natalia and Miska, along with her brother, would conduct a press release. Very much thanks to Canserbero's uncle, who remained adamant for years in the media that his nephew, much thanks to Canserbero's uncle, who remained pretty staunch in his views that his nephew could have never committed such despicable acts. Following the video, I think the sentiment from the public was very much like these two were being used as a scapegoat, so it seemingly used to tie up all the loose ends, and there was a lot more to the story than was being let on. To me, it looks like they were very much coerced into making the video. I'm not saying everything she's saying is lying, but she and her brother have already lied once, so who's to say that this isn't a lie too? I think it's almost a certainty that there was more than one party involved, because why would they give us the whole truth now when they wouldn't give us it for 10 years? From what she said, Cass had been tricked into meeting her on the Camino Real building in Andreas Bello in Maracay. She claimed he'd drugged the rapper by placing Xanax in his tea and then proceeded to stab Monler 3 times in the neck. According to Natalia, she worried Tyrone Canserbero had witnessed the fatal stabbing of Monler, but at that point heavily sedated on the couch and unaware. Tyrone was then stabbed by Natalia twice in the side. Distressed and not knowing what to do, Natalia called her brother Gilmoro, asking for help, staging the situation as a murder-suicide. He later arrived, accompanied by 4 Sabine officials, who were bribed $10,000 to disguise this as a murder. Gilmoro then proceeded to stab Monler a further 4 times in the body. The body of Tyrone was dragged into the kitchen, where it received multiple blows to the head with a pipe. The Romanelia of their windows was then carefully removed, and the body of Tyrone was thrown out of the window to simulate a suicide. Natalia fled to Chile shortly after committing the murders, which really should have raised some suspicion from the government, which in my eyes implicates them too. There's only so many coincidences before we have to call bullshit, isn't it?
No he aprendido, no es que no he aprendido, no me nace esa actitud de artista, ¿sabes? De esa gente que es demasiado carismática con la gente, no me cuesta. Y siempre estoy como que tímido cuando veo tanta gente, suelo ser introvertido. Y porque es todavía extraño para mí esta situación, pero poco a poco me he ido entendiendo que fue lo que elegí para vivir y así voy a morir. Ahí está todo mi concepto, vida y muerte. Después de esto ya es bonus. Ya después de todo lo que saque para acá es bonus. Creo que ya puedo morirme tranquilo. No sé si es un defecto o no, pero casi nunca ensayamos como deberíamos, en teoría. Y ni yo mismo sé exactamente cómo va a salir ese set ahí. Siempre hay un toque improvisado, lo queramos o no. A veces Caputo pone los instrumentales como está el ánimo de la gente. Y eso también hace que sentamos nervios. Pero creo que es parte también de lo que nos caracteriza, ¿sabes?
So yeah, overall, Canserbero's story sums up trying to do the best and do the right thing, knowing that it'll cost you. he knew the feathers he was rustling just by making the music he did, but to be so politically aware and pushing for the people of his country the way he did makes him a superhero in my eyes. He's got much more in common with a Malcolm X or a Che Guevara than your typical mainstream musician. He was really the voice of a generation that had nothing but shit hands given their whole lives, a voice for the speechless, those who will never be seen other than statistics. Another reason I like him is his undying kindness and general ability to uplift those around him, given how bad some parts of his own life were. I just think it's remarkable he was able to turn that round in such a short time into what he did. So yeah, the more people who listen to him, the better. I encourage people to spread the word about him. I see a serious lack of coverage for him in English speaking countries, and I don't see any other even YouTube channels that have even spoke about him, in English anyway. Then you add the music on top of that and it's some of the highest regarded albums of our time, especially in the boom bap space. He's quite literally the greatest of all time. So yeah, nice one for watching. Who should I do a video on next?